Welcome to MDBA's first Zoom speaker series of the year. I'm really excited to have you here. As we go through today's presentation, I'll say a few words of introduction about Mary Andre and Gaea Moore and the talk that they're going to present to us. Um, as we go through, I want to let people know we're going to be recording this, so this recording will be available on the MDBA website and also on our MDBA YouTube channel. So in case you miss it or a friend of yours misses it, you'll have access to it as well. Um, Today, we're really excited to have and Mary Andre and Gaea Moore come and speak to us about the Package B program that MDBA offers, and also the Queen purchasing, which is a new program that we're offering, as well as mite resistance in general. So we have Mary Andre, who's has for a long time helped run our package Queen, our package. Sales and delivery to club members. She's also worked closely with the UC Davis Master Beekeeping Program and has helped revamp the Journey Level Study Guide. So has a real depth of knowledge of beekeeping and scientific beekeeping, and has just been a huge force in bringing quality packaged bees to MDBA. Gaea Moore is helping to bring in availability of Golden West Queens for the first time to MDBA members. And Gaea just recently completed the journey level of the Master Beekeeping Program and is now working on a master's project involved with queen genetics. So we have two very experienced beekeepers who've done a lot of service for MDBA. We're very excited to welcome them today. So in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Mary and to Gaea to do the presentation. A few housekeeping items. I have folks muted, but if you later when we get to Q&A, if you want to unmute yourself, you're free to do so. If you can, as we're going through the presentation, I believe they're going to start with talking about the packages and the queen purchasing, and then move on to mite resistance in general. So if you have questions as we go through, if you want to write those in the chat on the right-hand margin of your Zoom screen, you can write those questions down in the chat, and we'll definitely have time to take those questions and answer some of those questions. One note about a question that's likely to arise is that all the information on pricing of the packages and the queens and the details about ordering and pickup are available on the MDBA website for members. So if you're a member of MDBA, you sign into the website, you'll see in the events calendar when the queens and packages ordering becomes available, and that's how you'll get accurate information on the pricing and the logistics of pickup. So I just wanted to clarify that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mary and to Gaea. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. All right. So as Ian pointed out, there's two parts to this. The first part is about the packages, as you can see, and the second part is the Varroa resistance. So in packages, it's the options that we're offering and a little bit on ordering them through MDBA pickup day, and then what are packages and a little bit about requeening. And then if you're a new beekeeper, some considerations.
And then we'll talk about Varroa resistance strategies in brief.
So to purchase, we're offering this year the Italian bees, which we've offered for years, and packages only. And then the Golden West are packages and then solitary queen, so a queen in a queen cage. So our Italian packages come from Hill and Ward Apiary in Northern California, and the MDBA has had a long relationship with them. If any of you are on that remember Marilyn Mangle, who's one of the original MDBA members, she picked them up for a while, and then I helped her. And when I was helping her, the packages all fit in a little Toyota pickup truck. And now we rent a box truck. So things have changed over the years. And I think I started keeping records of this in 2004. So that's when I officially took it over from Marilyn, I believe. And so the Italians, they have a really nice temperament, early spring buildup. They're really good brood producers and good honey producers. And so they're just a nice bee, and they're pretty easy to keep. What they don't have is as much Varroa resistance.
And the Golden West bees are a strain of bees that have been produced by Randy Oliver in partnership with Oliveris. And they have much the same qualities as the Italian bees. They're great for beginners. They're very gentle, great early buildup and high honey production, but they are raised also for mite resistance. So when I say raised for mite resistance, they are estimating that 50% of the colonies raised with Golden West packages and queens will have 0 mites, and those that have mites will have less mites than typical. And just as the backstory, last year I took a queen raising class at UC Davis with several of our fellow beekeepers, which is fun. I recommend that. And I thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we developed a queen rearing program within our own group where we identify folks that have colonies with low mite levels that are able to stay low mite levels without treatments, and then we raise queens and share them. I thought that's all well and good, but that will really depend on open mating with our drone genetics. How do we improve our drone genetics? And that made me think of what we're doing every year. We're bringing in queens and bringing in this genetics to our group with this kind of bulk bee purchase. And thankfully, Mary Andre was willing to mentor me in this partnership to now offer this new offering. Another option. Just a little bit more about the Golden West breeding program. Randy Oliver is an amazing biologist, bee researcher, and also he operates a commercial operation with his sons. He is the man behind scientific beekeeping. And what he does is, in his 1,500 colonies, they do multiple mite checks, counts per year on all of their colonies, and they determine which of the 30 colonies of this 1,500 colonies each year has the lowest mite count, but also meets these criteria. They're great temperament, excellent buildup, and nice honey production. And each year since 2017, they have re-queened all of their 1,500 hives with the 30 best queens. And that's what the 30 is enough, he believes, to maintain genetic diversity within the population. Now he's also partnering with the Oliveris honeybee company, and they're breeding these queens for public consumption in an isolated bee yard.
So how to order? You go to the MDBA website, go to the member event calendar, and you can order your bees. You'll see on February and March that you'll see where to click to order bees. So, and then it'll take you in there and answer a lot of your questions there. First day to order then is February 1. The last day to order is March 31st, no exceptions. And then the day that pickup is April 11, no exceptions. So Gaea and we just go get them and we bring them back and we do the distribution. We don't actually put them in boxes ourselves. So again, April 11, it'll be at the home of one of our members. And if you order bees, you will be emailed you will get an email that has all the specific instructions on what to do for picking them up. That email is you get as soon after April 1st as I can get the spreadsheets all created. So one of the things you'll be doing is in that information, it'll tell you a time window that you come to pick up your bees. And we would like you to have a sign, next slide will show you that you put on the passenger window. And I just have to say, if you have tinted windows, the sign has to go on the outside. You can't read it if it's on the inside. And then stay with your vehicle. We'll bring bees out to you, but you will be loading and securing them in your vehicle. So on the sign, we're picky about the sign because we need to be able to read it from about 30 to 50 feet away. So we really appreciate if it's you can get it on 8.5 by 11, but bigger is nicer. And to use a bold font, if they're produced on your computer, that really helps rather than handwritten. And it'll be your first and last name and then what you're purchasing. And so it's like IT package and then the number, that would be an Italian package. A GW package would be a Golden West. Queens, you can just write Queens because there's only one kind. So again, all those instructions will be in that email. So there will be loose bees on the outside of the packages. Even if they didn't come with them, they will get them because bees are interested in the packages. So expect loose bees. You might want to consider bringing a veil and perhaps gloves, because when the bees land on your steering wheel, you don't want to freak out. There are ventilated transport bags that are used for nooks, and they may work on the plastic packages, which will be the Golden West. However, they snag on the screens of the wood and screens, and so they don't really work on those, has been my experience when people have those. So the other trick is to get the bees out of your vehicle, one front window open a little bit and the other back window open. And it kind of depends on who you're trying to protect, which of those, but it's that diagonal like we learned during COVID. And the bees will just get swept out of the car. So that works quite well. The other thing is to remember to avoid personal care products on your hair and face and kind of exposed parts, because a lot of those contain the same chemical that is prominent in the bee alarm pheromones. So if you have that smell on you, you have a chance of getting stung. And that's why some people just tend to get stung in their hair and on their head because of the stuff they put on their bodies. Taking care of your packages, package bees need to stay cool. Overheating is a big problem for them. And so a package they can stay in your garage or on a north-facing porch. You don't want wind on them because they'll dry out fairly easily. So being a package bee is a stressful thing. So you don't want to encourage that. Queens, on the other hand, they need to stay warm. So be sure you don't cover your packages with anything. Like sometimes people will bring a blanket to put over them in the car. Don't do that. Don't put them in your frunk or in an enclosed thing in your trunk. They need air. So have I emphasized that enough? And then installing the packages late in the afternoon, evening. Packages, they don't really have a reason to stay there. And they're not even like a swarm. They're a bunch of bees from different colonies put in a box, and then a queen that's not related to them either. So their packages are just more likely to abscond, which means pick up and leave. So that's why putting them in the early evening, particularly if you're putting them in on just foundation. If you have drawn comb, that's much more appealing. But don't give them dirty drawn comb. You'll hear from people, oh, the bees will clean that up. Don't do that to a package. You can do that to a strong colony, but don't put a package on, stuff that's got a bunch of wax moth in it, stuff like that. And then the other thing, which I'll be able to show you in a picture, if it gets really hot, it can be nice to put some moisture, some water on the screen of the bees because they do get thirsty, and that'll help them. And I'll be able to show you what that looks like. So, if you're not going to be here on April 11, don't order bees. So it's just a one-day thing. And if you find you've ordered bees and you no longer want or need them and you would like to sell them to another member, then that's fine. Just come pick up your bees and do those transactions away from the pickup site after you have picked them up. We don't want to hear, oh, Joe said that I could pick up his bees. That won't fly. And then the other thing is when you are getting ready to install your package, and so you take the lid off and take the can out, you pull the queen out before you've released any bees, you look in the queen cage. If that queen cage is dead, that queen is dead, then you want to call me or text me as soon as possible, but between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. So my contact information will be in the email. It'll be on a tip sheet you get with your bees as well. So packages, what's a package? So a package, our packages will be 3 pounds of bees. It's possible, not through us, to buy 2-pound packages, 4-pound packages, 5-pound packages. Also, there will be a mated queen, and she's in a separate cage. And so in the picture, see if I got my little, do you know how to turn that on? Hold on, we might have a cursor we can turn on. There we go. So you will not have that. That's for when packages are sent in the mail. You'll just have the rest of this. So that's the queen cage is held on by that little tab. That's a can of syrup, so sugar water for the bees to feed on during transport while they're in here. So also you will get separately a tube of queen candy for using to release the queen. And the tip sheet will give you a lot of information on how to do that, as well as watching those, the installation. We'll tell you more about the installation videos. So one of the things I wanted to point out on this package is see how the bees are all on the screen in this picture? Those bees are too hot. They don't hang like that if they're okay. That just means they're hot, or you just drop the package and they're all over the place. But so if they look like that, give them a little bit of water. You can use a spray, just make sure nothing else has ever been in that spray bottle besides water. Or you can use like a clean little brush or to give them a little bit of water on the screen. So here are the package installation videos. MDBA made one that's on package installation and queen introduction instructions and a lot of little tips on installing packages. And these are on the website. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. Then the other one is the Randy Oliver showing how to install the bees that are in the plastic bee bus. So the Golden West will be coming in a plastic bee bus, and the Italians come in wooden screen. Why you want to watch if you're getting a plastic bee bus is so that you know how to open it. You don't empty them through the hole in the top like you do on the wood ones. One of the walls opens up. So you want to learn how to do that in that video. And he shows you how to introduce a queen too. So being prepared for your package, there is a live package installation hive dive on Saturday the 4th. That's on the member event calendar. So that's one thing you can participate in. And then so that's happening a week before you would get your packages. And then on 2 weeks from the 4th, there's a follow-up hive dive, so you can know what you would expect to see when you look at your package in 2 weeks. So I recommend those. And the other thing is you want to make sure that all the hive equipment is set up well ahead of time. If there's any painting or anything like that, those fumes need to have dissipated well, and bees can smell better than we can. So make sure all your frames are in and everything's sitting in your bee yard, ready to go well ahead means like at least a week of getting your bees. Because again, if it smells funny, they'll leave, which is that. Packages often abscond if accommodations are undesirable or if they're disturbed too much after they go in. So you don't want to be checking on them too often initially. The other thing you want to do is feed your package. So this is really important if they're on foundation only. So again, they're not like a swarm that's prepped and ready to start building comb. They're like, what happened? So feed them so they can draw comb, even if it's a nectarous flow is on, and you want them to stay in there. So feeding them is very helpful, and continue feeding them until the comb is drawn, brood is present, and a nectar flow is on. Stop feeding them if you're going to take any of those frames and call it honey. You don't want to call sugar water honey. So you should never be feeding if you have honey supers on, or you're going to use those frames for honey. So an in-hive or top feeder works well because, well, let me talk about top feeders. I'll even talk about entrance feeders. So entrance feeders go in the entrance. They tend to leak they tend to attract ants and they tend to attract robbing. But an entrance feeder put on top of your inner cover with another box around that, and then the cover, the bees can go up through the inner cover hole and they can feed. And it's real easy for you to take the cover off and refill those jars without disturbing the bees. So a top feed, and it's easy to keep it clean, because the other thing is you don't want a lot of mold growing in there, and so you can see in the jars. In-high feeders like frame feeders, those can work fine too. And then you want a feeding system where you can monitor, do they need more food? Does it still look fresh? And being able to do it without disturbing them very much. Then sugar, the type of sugar syrup would be a 1-to-1. It doesn't matter if it's by weight or volume. We're not doing research. It's close enough. So, and you want pure white granulated sugar. A lot of the organic sugars have too much molasses in them. That's not good for your bees. So just pure white sugar and water. And you want to boil the water first, then turn it off, then add the sugar. Do not boil the sugar-water solution. There's a reason for that, and then again, don't harvest honey that's been made from sugar water. It's not actually honey. Okay, requeening. So the reasons, so you may be just wanting to buy a queen. You got bees, but you say, this idea of some better Varroa control sounds like a good idea. So, but there are a number of reasons to requeen. So one is improving the hygienic behavior, which is one of the big parts of Varroa resistance. The other might be you just have a colony that's a little, not so nice. And so you want to requeen to change the temperament. You may have a colony that's just not building up like it should. Sometimes it's the queen, sometimes it's not, but requeening is one of the things that's commonly done. Young queens are less likely to swarm. So if you've got a queen that's been in there, for a year or so, they're just more likely to swarm than a new queen. And then, so that's why sometimes we just requeen every year, requeen every 2 years. The other thing is you might be making more colonies. So you might split a colony and choose to introduce a queen rather than wait the month or so for the bees to make their own queen. The Requeening Information Camp, which is the California Master Beekeepers program, has a paper on requeening. And if you go to the camp website, which I think you can just put in camp or California Master Beekeeper and then it'll pop up. You go to their knowledge base tab, and then on that page there is requeening. You'll see that as a link. So it just has a lot of good information on how to requeen. One of the basics is you want to take the old queen out about 2 days prior to introducing a new queen, and you can kill the old queen kind of however you want. So if you know people in the education part, they kind of like frozen or queens have been dropped in alcohol, so we can show them to the kids and they can, actually touch them and stuff. And then it's important to check for queen acceptance while she's still in the queen cage. So when bees are introduced to a queen that doesn't smell like them, they want to kill her. So not always, but frequently. So by looking at how the bees are reacting to the queen while she's still in the cage, and the videos go over that, the package videos all go over that, but you want to look for that while she's still in the cage. Once the bees are feeding her, not trying to sting her, then you put in the queen candy plug. And the videos show you how to do that. So on the queen cages, that metal tab that comes on them, it's stapled on for the purpose of you putting them in packages, not for the end user. So that tab needs to be twisted 90 degrees and then put a hook on the top, and then it'll hang on a frame and hang down between the frames. The other thing is there's a screen on one side. That screen needs to go between the frames, not facing a frame. If it faces a frame, there's not enough room for the bees to get in there and the queen will die. And the queen does not really eat the queen candy. She really needs the bees to take care of her. So it's very important that the bees can access that queen cage. So generally it's put the queen in, keep her corked. Depends. You can look at her when she comes out of a package, but let's say she wasn't from a package. You're just introducing a queen. You want to keep her corked, for about 3 days, then look at how the bees are responding to her. And if they're being nice, then you put in the queen candy plug. So if they're feeding her, you're good to go. So for putting in the queen candy plug, if you've not done this many times, because even people who've done it many times mess up. So, if you do, it's not, I mean, it happens. But do it in an enclosed area if you're novice, because what happens is people take that cork out and the queen flies off. Okay, so queens that have been in cages, they can fly really well. It's when queens are actively laying that they don't fly so much. So anyway, make sure you have a finger ready to go over the hole. And insects tend to go up. So if the hole's sort of facing down, that helps a little bit. And then hold on to the queen candy tube. It's not this big. Hold it so that when you push it into the cage, your fingers will stop it from going in too far. You hold it out here and you push it in like that, you can kill your queen. So, hold it so you don't go too far. And Randy Oliver talks about that. I know because I just watched his video. I think I do too in the other video. And then make sure the queen is at the end of the cage where you're not when you're putting in that queen candy and when you're taking out the cork. So it's a little tricky. And if you do it inside, no high windows because that's where she'll go. So, all right. So for preparing for bees as a new beekeeper.
We have lots of resources within our club and our community to support new beekeepers. One of our fellow beekeepers, Jackie's actually designed a series of classes for new beekeepers to learn the ins and outs of beekeeping, as well as practical skills and hive inspections. To learn more about the program, you can go to our MDBA website and check out the offerings here. And then to sign up for these classes, you actually go to the event calendar and you'll be able to see there's already classes offered that you can sign up for today. We also offer new beekeeper Zoom meetings. And I found these to be so helpful when I was starting out, because there's people that didn't know a lot. Like, I still don't know a lot. I have so much to learn. But at that time, I felt really comfortable asking questions about what I was seeing and worrying about mistakes that I made. It was just a really safe place to ask questions and also learn from people that were at a similar place as me, so I can learn from their trials and tribulations as well. There's also a series of hive dives, and you can sign up for these on the event calendar as well. At one of my early hive dives in my first year, Larry Long recommended that I sign up for this ambassador program, and I'm so glad that I did for multiple reasons. I'd been trying to learn online through YouTube videos and different university websites, learning piecemeal, and this ambassador program provides you not only with tons of videos from the camp program, but this really nice curated document with great learnings as a beekeeper that were really foundational. The Master Beekeeper program has 4 levels: Ambassador, Apprentice, Journey, and Master. And particularly through the Journey Apprentice and Journey programs, you have the opportunity to study the material with a group. And this is a wonderful way to meet fellow beekeepers in our club, learn together, just develop your network of beekeepers. It's really fun to come to meetings. It's like, I recognize people. I didn't right away, but it's a really neat community and a great way to get to know people. All right. So before we move on to talking about looking at Varroa resistant traits in our honeybees, we'd like to stop and ask you, Ian, is there any chatter on the question thread? Anything we can address?
Yeah, we have some great little comments and some questions here. One member asks, is it okay to transport bees in the truck bed, or is it better to keep them inside a car? So that's the first question.
They can be in a truck bed. Just don't stop the heat can be a problem, but not when the wind's blowing. So truck beds are fine. Just don't stop for lunch.
Yeah, yeah, the heat's the big issue.
Keep
Another question is can we drop off empty package containers from last year? I know you made an announcement about this at the last general meeting, but could you
At,
remind people about
yes,
that?
at the March meeting and at the April meeting, I'll accept used packages. Please have them be clean. Nothing in them. No queen cage. No empty sugar can. No leaves. No other stuff. But I can pick them up at those two meetings, and they has to be before I pick up packages, not after. So don't show up picking up your bees with your packages because I can't take them then.
Sounds good. And then Jamie asks, are the Golden West packages made up of hygienic bulk bees, or are the packages made up with the regular bulk bees and a Golden West queen? Do we know about the composition of those packages beyond the queen?
I assumed that they were all Golden West worker bees with a Golden West queen, but I will message Randy Oliver
Okay,
or Oliveris.
excellent. Thank you very much. And then the final question about related to packages was, can you install drawn cone frames from a recently installed package B? So it sounds like, not super old moth-eaten frames, but fairly recent.
Yeah, drawn comb is if you have drawn comb that you can put your package on, that's way better. It just needs to be decent.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it'll give them a head start. So that's ideal, is to have some drawn comb.
excellent. Excellent. So those are the questions that were in the chat, and if folks have other questions, please keep putting them in the chat, and we'll definitely have time towards the end after we talk about Varroa resistance in some detail to answer any of the questions about packages or the Golden and West Queens. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Gaea. Thanks.
Many of you on this chat are experienced beekeepers, so forgive us as we provide this overview. But as many of us are familiar with, the Varroa destructor mite is a parasitic mite that actually feeds off bees. It feeds on their fat bodies, weakening them and introducing viruses right into their bloodstream. And since the 1980s, this has been a big sore in beekeepers and has contributed to colony collapse, not only from the weakening of the bees, but the sensitivity to viruses and other factors. In this image here, we can see, it's hard to see, hold on. In this red circle, there's a bee with a phoretic mite, a mite that's stuck on the outside. And boy, if you can see mites on the outside like that, you have a mite problem, because normally they're stuck underneath the sternites, underneath their body. But when you can see them here, you've got a mite problem. The other thing that we're seeing in this image, something called deformed wing virus. So I had this in my hives my first year. So this is B1 and B2. And what we're seeing is that instead of these beautiful shiny wings, we have these little spindles that certainly don't fly. They don't serve the bees well. And that's from a virus that's transmitted through mites. Other ways too, but primarily through mites. This is a table that we describe as the integrated pest management pyramid, which describes our general strategies for approaching the mite problem. Basically, this goes from lowest risk to highest risk to the bees. Here on and we tend to focus on these areas in the bottom of this pyramid. We think about biologic resistant mites. Then we think about things like drone trapping and brood breaks, and up on top we have synthetic chemicals like amitraz. And for a long time, this idea of resistant stock was something of a someday, maybe outside of our lifetime. But we are very lucky to be in a time in this beekeeping age where we are actually making headway here, not only through the efforts of bees themselves in adapting to the mite problem, but in breeding efforts. So what I really like to focus on in this pyramid is that when we invest in prevention, we can help minimize the need for treatment. So I know we haven't spoken about costs of bees. The golden west bees are more expensive, but I would like to say that I would like to believe that we're investing in less Formic Pro in the future. Since the 1980s, when the Varroa destructor jumped from its enclave in Asia out to the world, the Varroa mite has caused a lot of havoc. There were many areas, and most of the world was really devastated by this mite. And for those areas in which we had the resources to treat, we began treating to keep bee operations alive. And it turns out that in areas where treatment wasn't offered, bees have figured out a way to work around the mites, to get rid of mites, to survive with mites. And it turns out that they've done it in similar ways in parallel in different places around the world. For example, in Cuba, where they've been treatment-free for quite a long time. There's areas in Russia, France, South Africa. And in addition to those, so we have some idea of how bees can be more resistant to mites, and we'll talk about some of the strategies that they develop. And that's more of a natural selection pathway where bees have this force that's causing less survival, but those bees that are able to survive have greater fitness, so to speak. As beekeepers, we have also invested in strategies to promote Varroa resistance to get to a place where we require less treatment. Well, our bees require less treatment. We may also require treatment. We select for mite resistance using mite counts, looking at mite drops on bottom boards, uncapping and recapping behavior, something Mary-Andrea will talk about in a minute, and evidence of pupa removal. There's different assays that look at how efficient bees are at identifying and removing mites, such as there's actually a way of introducing, well, there's something called the unhealthy brood odor assay and the Varroa sensitive hygiene assay, which probably outside the scope of this talk. But suffice to say, there are multiple ways that as potential queen rearers, we can look at how our bees are doing better or not as good at fighting mites.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the uncapping and recapping. And because bees are able to detect pupa. So when the open brood is the egg and larval stage, and then the cap brood is the very end of a larval stage, and then the pupa, and then the bee emerges. So the pupal stage is generally the cap stage. Think of it like that. And the bees are able to detect pupae that have Varroa mite families in them. So not just a Varroa in them, but the family. So the female has laid eggs, but they're not, those eggs have hatched, but the offspring haven't mated yet. They're not, they can't, they're not reproductive yet. And so the bees will open that capping, and that disrupts that brood cycle for that mite. So she's gone to all this work, but to no avail, they all die. So that's the uncapping at this particular time in the pupal development. It's the pink-eyed stage to purple-eyed stage. So we can see that in our bees. We can see this uncapping behavior going on. So that's a sign that your bees are expressing mite-resistant traits. Then of this brood, some are too sick and they remove them. Some are okay and they recap them. So you can also see this recapping. It's not easy to see in photos, and it's something that you kind of get a feel for over time. The other thing that we can see is the pupils of those pupae that are too sick to exist. So they're pulled out. their exoskeletons, particularly parts of the head and the antenna, you can see on the board that goes under a screen bottom board. And so if you're seeing that, you can see, oh, these bees have some Varroa resistant traits. Also, you can see on the screen bottom board, immature mites. So a mature mite is dark red, brownish red, and the immatures are lighter colors and can be smaller, just depends on where they are in their development. So you can see that on the screen bottom board, and that's a good sign. And so the other thing you'll see is the brood pattern, which I think I show you a picture of shortly, is it's spotty, but the queen backfills and there's healthy brood. They're not sick brood. So here's a picture of uncapped, that's just my cursor, of uncapped pupae. And so that's kind of what you would see. You see cells, well, they remove pupae from these cells. They've uncapped these. That one they've recapped. Others they've recapped in here, but that's kind of what you see. So by opening this up, it disrupts that reproductive cycle of the mite. And a female mite only has 2 to 3 reproductive cycles. So even though she escapes and then can then go infest another larva just before the cell's capped, she can't keep doing that forever. She only has 2 to 3 chances to really go through the reproductive cycle. And so the part of the point is Varroa resistance can look like spotty brood, but it's a little bit different. Before I go there, this is just a picture of that was taken with uncapped brood, and then 48 hours later, there's actually a 24-hour picture that's not here, I didn't take, but 48 hours later, so all these blues have been recapped. The greens are starting to be uncapped. So different bees do these different things. There's the ones that start the uncapping, and then there's ones that will take out brood that's diseased, and then there's others that do the recapping. So just to show you, there's quite a bit of this recapping going on in there. But if you see that sort of stuff, that's a sign of Varroa resistant mites. That's a trait that they'll show. So this picture shows on the left, this is uncapping and recapping, familiar picture. This, on the other hand, which is also spotty brood, is parasitic mite syndrome. Look how sick all those open cells are. Some of them are just melting. But look how nice the cappings are. They're all like, original. So this you do not want to see. That's like really bad. You got to have done something long before you see this. And this is something that you would like to see. And we're going to go over all this stuff in a totally separate presentation later on in the year, hopefully. So this is a picture of the other. When those unhealthy pupae are removed, here's a picture of antennae that you can see in part of the head. Antennae are kind of like real distinctive to see, but you see several, most of the white stuff, that looks like it might actually be a wax plate. So selecting for Varroa. So we want to monitor the colonies we want low mite counts. Keep doing mite counts. There's different ways to do it. Depends on kind of what your program, but you got to monitor your mites. Look for this uncapping. Look for pupal exoskeleton parts on the bottom board. I do want to say here, if you're a big operator, like a commercial person, you're not going to be looking at your bees as often as a hobbyist might. You can't do the screen bottom board thing. You don't have time for that. So you're mostly depending on low mite counts. And so that's one of the strategies is your bees have low mite counts or they don't. And they're either, functioning well or they're not. So that's like what Randy Oliver is doing. And that works well for a big operation. For smaller operations, you can look at these other things. So that's why we're proposing this type of thing, which is a little bit different than a big operation would do. So if we want to make more queens and definitely make more drones from colonies that are expressing these mite-resistant traits. On the other hand, if your bees aren't showing these mite-resistant traits, we don't want those drones. So we want to remove, typically we remove drones by removing them at the cap drone brood stage, and then requeen those colonies from colonies that are showing mite-resistant traits. So it's much more paying attention to these early on. Now, if you put a new queen in a colony, it's going to take minimum 40 days to start having the bees that actually do this mite-resistant activity. So, it takes a little while because you got to change out all the bees, right? And at 60 days, you've got all her daughters are in there doing their thing. So there's a video that talks about how to use looking at these traits as a way to help you move towards resistant bees that can be done on I'd like to think like if members of the club are interested in doing this together, it would work really well. So if you're looking for Steve Riley, and it's the honeybee solution to Varroa, I happen to like his presentation to the National Honey Show. He is in the UK. So it's the UK National Honey Show. And that's a book. He's written a book by the same title that's readily available that I like. So these are some pictures from Randy Oliver, and these are drone frames. So the green ones are, you can just buy those, but the one on the left is what Randy Oliver made. And so what'll happen is the bees, if this is narrow, according to Randy, if this is narrow enough, the bees will put honey here, and then they'll build drone comb down here. So then as a beekeeper, and you want to remove drones because this colony is not showing mite-resistant traits, you just take your hive tool and you scrape it along there, dump all those drones into your bucket, and you put that right back in your colony. There's no downtime for that frame. It's not like scrape it, put it in the freezer, whatever you're going to do. So I have also just want to say at this point, I have made frames. I don't use the wooden bottom board. I just use plastic foundation up here. And I will be offering some workshops in making those because all you need to do is bring the frame. I have all the other stuff. So I'll be offering some of those in the months coming up.
So what we're proposing as a community that we think about how we're changing, how we respond to our colonies with high mite counts. We're still recommending checking for mite counts. Back to what we said, these Golden West queens, 50% of them will have low mite counts, but 50% of them will still have mites. And not only do we potentially need to treat those, but we want to identify those colonies that have very low to zero mite counts so that we can harness the power of that as a community. So regularly monitor for mites. And then if you determine that treatment is needed, think about that as an opportunity to change the genetics of your colony. There are prevention strategies available so you don't have to treat again. So it's not unreasonable to treat at that point, bring the mite level down and then introduce a new queen. But rather than just treating and waiting for the mite level to rise again, think about replacing your queen. Let's see. The other thing that that we point out and Steve Riley mentions, go ahead.
Well, one of the other things, so it's removing drones and queens from colonies that aren't up to snuff and then replacing with queens. But one of the places where, so I don't use chemicals, whether they're organic or not, in treating my bees. So when I'm replacing, but I look for if they don't make the cut having low mite counts, I haven't been doing all this other stuff because it's just been come more recently to my attention. But if I'm going to replace my queen in a colony that has mites, I will use formic acid to knock down those mites so my new queen doesn't have a colony full of mites. But I leave the old queen in while I do that because formic acid can be a little hard on queens, particularly when it gets warm. So yeah, knock down the mites before you introduce a new queen. I think it's just nice for the colony. And then also note that regular use of miticides will suppress the expression of Varroa-resistant traits. So you do kind of have to decide which way am I going to go. And when we talk later in the year about how, if you wanted to be part of this increasing Varroa-resistant traits in our honeybees, we'll go much more in depth about how we do that and what we do with the mites. We do not let colonies have high mite counts. That is not part of the picture. It's not do or die. It's there are things to do. So
and the cool thing about this effort of us all working together, it's like a public health campaign that if we invest in this Golden West stock in every part of our club, and if we begin selecting for Varroa resistant stock and getting rid of letting go of the colonies that are not as strong resistant wise, that we should see year after year an improvement in the Varroa resistance of our open mated queens, because our drone genetics will be stronger and stronger. So I was thinking, how do we make it easy for our club members to requeen with Varroa resistant queens? Like I've many times been on a Saturday like, hey, who has any queen at all? Any queen? And I just, do what I can to get a queen. But that made me think that if we are able to harness our queen rearing potential as a club, if we all work towards this, or even a few of us work towards developing queens more in a higher volume for our club members and making them more readily available to our club, then this will really promote the effort in addition to raising Golden West queens. So I've had a few ideas, but these are just my ideas, and I would love to hear from our whole hive. Like, what ideas do you have? What could we do together? So if you have a nuke box, like raise a queen, get it ready for yourself or your neighbor or someone in your cluster that may need a queen. And then we've thought about developing a group or a guild within our club of folks that are interested in raising queens selected for mite resistance, and working together to support each other and teach each other and work on that, and then develop a database of locally available mite resistant queens so that on those Saturdays when you are hurting for a queen, you can easily go to someone, hopefully in your cluster, someone close by that has a queen available.
That also is mite resistant.
Yes. So please feel free to reach out to us. I think this is pretty exciting that we can harness our collective efforts, and it really will help all of us as community beekeepers. Like if I think about where we will be as a club in 5 years, I think that we'll all have better overwintering success, better open mated queens from, I'm hoping, these efforts.
It's doable. So in Steve Riley's group, they're a group of beekeepers, and it's their local beekeeping club, and they were able to get Varroa resistance through open mating through their club in like 7 years. So it's quite doable.
Yeah.
So, and we'll be talking more about this in other venues.
You'll be sick of us.
Yeah. So again, the package installation videos. So there, if you go to the MDBA website, and on the home page with your member login, on the home page over on the right, there's member resources. And when you open that, you have to click on where it says member resources. And when you click on that, you will see on the right near the bottom, there's a box that says package and queen installation. There's another box that talks about Varroa resistant honeybees. So all these links are in there. So pretty much all the links that we've shown you are in there, and that's where you can go to watch them, because we know you can't click on them here. And so there's the ones on Varroa resistant, using this, looking at the uncapping and the recapping and that sort of thing. This is a research article. I thought it was really great, but you might, you don't read it if you don't like it. This is Harbo is who did the Varroa sensitive hygiene. And so it tells you what that really means and what they're looking for with that. You can't actually test for Varroa sensitive hygiene by doing mite counts. It's just not what that means. But it is another, what is Varroa sensitive hygiene? And he did do it for, the general population versus just researchers. Another good resource on how we as a group, this is another group that's raising mite resistant queens. So that website is good to go to. This book I highly recommend. So those resources are all in that member resources. Click there and then look down. And then there's a section on Randy Oliver's approach, how he's done his selective mite breeding. So mite resistance breeding. So there's a video, which I recommend starting at minute 10. And then, but you can listen to the whole thing. And then he has a 4-part series that he published in the American Bee Journal. And so, and you can get it from his website here. So that's what the different parts are about. I think we have a link to each part in that resource.
It's hard to search for these individual parts on his website, but if you use Google to search in his website, it's easy to find. Or again, it's on
But these actually are links in member resources.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we are ready for questions. I think we have a couple more minutes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's some great questions in the chat. Also, just some words of appreciation for this project and for what you're doing. So the first question was, and I think this stems from you mentioning that there will be moments later this year where we might be able to sort of work together on some of these things. The question was about the availability of the Golden West Queens and does this mean Golden West Queens will be available throughout the summer? So could you
No.
clarify about when the available Golden
Yeah.
West Queens are and then how these follow-up efforts will happen sort of after the installation?
So for our members, the buying packages and buying queens is a one-time event every year. So that's that. You certainly can go up to Oliveris yourself to buy more Golden West Queens or have them shipped to you. Our goal is with this group is to start making some of our own queens from colonies that are showing mite resistant traits. So this project we're working on is a multi-year project versus being able to buy more Golden West Queens from MDBA. That's a once a year event.
And potentially if there's enough interest, and we can create a club, but potentially in like August, we can think about if OHB has enough Golden West Queens still, we can think about another bulk purchase. It won't take a U-Haul. So
yes, queens are much easier.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank
Then
you.
there's another question that's related to, thinking about the larger impacts on genetic diversity in the area. So obviously one of the goals of this Gaea for the long term is improving Varroa resistant stock kind of in general in the area. But there's a question of wondering if there will be less bee diversity in the Mount Diablo area if we really all become Golden West beekeepers. So maybe you could just like kind of talk a little bit about the impact that this might have, and if this really is a narrowing of genetic diversity or a trying to steer a trajectory for genetic diversity in the area.
Good question.
Yeah, so you will get some decrease in gene pool whenever you do any kind of a selection program. However, you're selecting for something that improves survival and things are still open mated and we still have our feral colonies. We're not like on a campaign to remove all other genetics. So genetics will always be coming in. And that's part of what's nice about open mating is we will always have genetics coming in. And so our goal really is to help the bees do what they do to have more Varroa resistant, but we're not doing any kind of closed mating system and we don't have isolated drone mating yards.
And Randy Oliver from his research and studying other genetic studies feels like having 30 colonies is enough to maintain genetic diversity. My hope is that with our future beekeeping guild, we can harness our own pockets of mite resistant to add to what's happening with the Golden West that will also complement the genetics. So I'm imagining, Ian, you are called to, or I don't know if you do cutouts, but someone's called for a cutout, and it's obvious this cutout, this colony has been there for years. They're established. They have survived without any of our intervention.
And you can see that when you do the
Yes.
cutout, you see the traits.
And they're like, those are the colonies that I'm hoping that as a team we can breed from and share.
And stop buying bees.
Well, I mean, from me, maybe from each other, but
it's a joke with the guy I get bees from. He goes, "Well, how's the club doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm back here buying packages again." You know, I mean, when we're doing well, our bees will be able to survive over the winter. Our problem will be I need to do splits, not I need to buy packages.
And if you want to buy a Varroa resistant queen and you want it like from Randy Oliver, for example, or from OHB, like it's a lot of money because it basically the price of the bee, which is a lot more than what we're going to pay. And also the shipping, which is like double the price. So the goal is to bring that price down to something that's accessible for our humble beekeepers, myself included, to requeen in a way that doesn't break the bank. That was a long answer to your short question. I'm not worried about it with our add-on of harnessing our local genetics.
Excellent. Yeah.
Great point.
Excellent. Another question, just to I know it's a question that people have is about and this is a complicated question about genetics and the longevity of those genetics. What about like sort of the expectations of how long these traits can survive in a colony, sort of past the queen, past the initial queen, how that Varroa resistance might will degrade over generations if our colonies requeen. Just a little bit about that. I know that's a deep topic.
Go first.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the whole point of this group, like, and our efforts, is that we want our daughters of Golden West queens to have the same capability as these queens that we're bringing in, and we're only going to do that if we improve our drone genetics.
Yeah.
So every year, as we're bringing in drones with better and better genetics, I think this will improve our efforts. This is where I was, the same question last year when I was like, oh, it would be really cool to develop a program where we bred for mite resistance. But I thought, gosh, there's so many non-resistant mites in our community, it will just like fade away. But if we can, in our community, really flood the population with Varroa resistance through multiple pathways.
Yeah.
And it's been done in other areas, particularly in UK is very active. So it's being done with open mating in communities. We're getting one of the advantages of open mating is you're getting a lot of different drones contributing to the genetics in a colony. So some of those bees might be good at one type of task, other half sisters, so you got the sisters that might be good at one thing, and then their half sisters are going to be good at something else. So you want all those different drone genetics, and you just want things to come together so that you get this Varroa resistance, but you need all that different. And so when you have that in the drone population, then you don't have the problems with losing it. If you buy a VSH queen, say, yeah, and that's it, it's not going to last. But if we're getting the whole area to be Varroa resistant, it'll be sustainable.
One other thing I like to highlight from Randy Oliver is he says, I love seeing the drones come out and they all look different. It's like he has like this hodgepodge, very heterogeneous population of bees that happen to all share mite resistance, but they really have this different pool of.
Yeah, so we're not looking for, oh, I want a dark bee or, oh, I want a light bee. I mean, that really isn't helpful. You want a mixture.
A kind of a follow-up question that segues nicely with thinking about how to use open mating in this area to sustain these traits is Jamie's question. What's the best practice for placement of Golden West drones in relation to our apiary locations if the goal is to mate with our golden west offspring. In other words, what's the information on like placing drone producing colonies in relation to maybe our primary apiaries for open mating if we want to try and
It,
that work?
I think the best thing we can do is to remove drones that don't show mite resistant traits and grow more drones from colonies that do, because it's all gonna, just happen out there. I don't think we need to try and control drone congregation areas. Just be real hard on deselecting those that aren't making the cut, as well as selecting for those that do. Don't just let your high mite count colony drones keep
Yeah.
being reproduced.
It's like coughing without like going into your elbow. Like it's spreading stuff we don't want.
So it's doable without worrying about that.
Nice. There's a couple questions in the chat that I'll answer quickly. One is, will the PowerPoint pages be available on the MDBA website? And yes, I'll work to get the PowerPoint pages from the presenters, and we'll put that with a link to the YouTube video. I'm also a little later. I'll give the link to our YouTube channel where all the videos are available as well, and we'll get that there. And then someone asked a question again about the pricing. I'll clarify that the accurate pricing information will all be available on the website. So on the MDBA website, if you
It's
log
there
in,
now.
it's there now. Yeah. So if you log in as a member, you'll be able to see the pricing on the packages and the Golden West Queens, and also all the information on ordering it and how to order it through the event calendar. So
Yeah,
all
you
that,
just can't purchase yet, but the you can see it.
and that gives you the most accurate information there.
And just know we're getting a significant discount with this full rate from
Yep.
OHB.
All right. Any other last questions? I think I got all the questions in the chat. Any other questions before we wrap up here? All right. Hearing none. I want to say a few. Oh, there's something. I wanted to say a a question. There's a question about actually about open mating. A bigger question about open mating in the area. Is it a concern in our area, open mating with the Scutellata genetics that make up a certain percentage of the population in this area? I know it's a big issue down south. My brother keeps bees in Orange, and they can't do open mating, but here, just if you could give a quick little response to
Uh-huh.
the question of open mating in general in this area, is it something that
It's
we see as a
there's
problem?
a there's a little bit of Scutellata hybrid. The thing is, if you have a feisty colony, requeen it. If you have a feisty colony, look at the camp website on requeening, because you have to requeen a little more cautiously, a little more delayed, or call me. But don't don't tolerate a colony that's showing high defensive response. It's not needed. Like Randy says, he doesn't want defensive. He doesn't keep defensive bees, and he has bees that are mite resistant and good producers. And you've seen him; he never wears anything. Now, one of his kids always wears a veil. I think Randy's lucky, but there's no reason to keep feisty bees. You can have good honey production without them. So that's one of the things. It's not all just about mite resistance. It's also we want nice bees and good production.
I want to say the last reference I saw thought that maybe there was like a 1 to 3% Scutellata genes, higher than that. So higher than that, which also speaks to knowing your colonies and really selecting for the traits that you want.
And I think it's important, if we don't want to be hamstrung like San Diego County, you're not allowed to have open mating. If we don't want that to happen here, let's keep the Scutellata hybrid presence really low by requeening when we see anything that's seems. And you can send your bees in to see how much Scutellata is in them. But basically, if you've got bees that are showing highly defensive traits, requeen. And I mean, there are some other reasons bees are defensive, so rule those out first. But
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. So a few quick reminders. In addition to all the dates about the purchasing of packages and Golden West Queens, keep in mind what they mentioned about those two hive dives that are happening at the MDBA apiary in April on either weekend on either side of the pickup day. We will be doing a sample packet installation the week before packages are delivered. So if you're brand new to this, if you've never installed a package before, you can come out and you can participate in installing a package and see what that's like a week prior to getting your own bees. And then we'll be doing a follow-up, as Mary mentioned, 2 weeks later, so that you have a week preview of what to look for, what your package might look for after having been installed for 2 weeks. So that's a really great opportunity for people to get kind of hands-on knowledge about how to remove the queen from the queen cage and all of that, remove the queen from the package and all of that. The other thing I'll mention, I'm putting this in the chat now, is keep in mind that we do have an MDBA YouTube channel, and one way to access some of our MDBA videos is through our website, but you can also just go to the YouTube channel and the videos are publicly available there. All of the presentations from last year, all the Zoom speaker presentations are there and available. This presentation, as soon as it's processed, will be posted there as well as Mary's package installation video is also available to you there. So if you would take a moment, please, to click on that YouTube link and subscribe to that channel. I'd love to see that subscription level go up. And then my final thing is just to say thank you to Gaea and to Mary, both for all the work you've done, Mary, in previous years with packages, and for really bringing so much energy to this program this year and kind of charting new paths for us. So thank you very much for taking the time to walk us through this, and thanks everyone for being here.
You're welcome. And we're really excited about shifting the genetics in our community. So hope you'll
Excellent,
join
everyone.
us.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.